Hey guys, CJ here with a brand new review of Agent Carter. I am so sorry it's late. I actually had issues with my television last night, but I'm bringing it to you now all the same. This episode saw Peggy and the Howling Commandos travel to Belarus for an interesting assignment. Find whatever was located at the mysterious coordinates Dooley's typewriter printed out. It's just like an episode of Scooby-Doo. One of the biggest and best parts of the episode actually came before they even got to Russia, and that to me was how exactly Carter managed to get assigned to the mission in the first place. You know, they advertised this episode as Peggy and the old commandos just tearing it up in Russia, but the fact that that almost didn't happen kind of caught me off guard. I figured they'd just throw you right into it. The office politics and sexism were on full display as Thompson tried to prevent her involvement with the mission at all. When in Russia, the SSR team grouped up with the commandos. We got some good bonding scenes here and got a good look in Thompson's head, which was one of my favorite parts of the episode in general. Before they headed into the mostly abandoned Russian facility they were searching for, that is. Within, they found their target, two scientists, one a brilliant but unhinged physicist/engineer, and the other his psychiatrist. As a firefight ensued with Soviet troops, only one of them made it out alive, and hence it was not the unsurprisingly double-crossing physicist guy. A major wrench in the works, seems to be coming Peggy's way, as now Sousa knows it was her in the blonde wig. He identified a bullet wound on her right shoulder and matched it up with the image of her in the blonde wig with the kind of strapped dress from the first episode. However, he's pretty obviously torn here between doing what he thinks is right by his job and his feelings for Peggy, and my bet is he'll actually talk to her about it in the next episode. In summary, this was really an episode dedicated to Peggy finally making some breakthroughs and potentially disarming and dismantling some of the prejudice and sexism that had held her back previously. The first step was breaking the typewriter's code, the second getting herself on the mission by securing the Howling Commando's involvement, the third her actions in battle, and at the end her conversation with Thompson, where he actually made a confession that he had never told anyone, and it was a confession of cowardice, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. The Commandos helped too, specifically Dum Dum Dugan, as they all vouched for Agent Carter's abilities at every turn. Probably the greatest part of this episode was actually how well it developed two previously supporting/background characters, Dottie and Thompson. Dottie, of course, was the one people expected. She was the one that all the promotional images featured this week, and she's of course tied to the precursor Black Widow program that we saw in the Belarusian facility. Thompson, though, was a nice addition to the mix. Of course, the episode we saw him change, though slightly, from Chauvinist doing anything to keep Peggy off the mission because she was a woman, to by the end confessing that a story he had never told anyone, that his Navy Cross was actually unearned and ultimately buying Carter a drink. It's a nice change of pace, and I'm genuinely interested in seeing the effects on this on the Office's dynamic next week. Can I also just say how shocking it was that young Dottie broke that girl's neck? My jaw hit the floor. Jesus Christ, I think I swallowed a mosquito. And yet some people will still say Marvel only makes things for children. Another great part was, of course, the return of the Howling Commandos themselves. It was a nice throwback to the days of the original Captain America movie, without which this show would not exist. Though they recast or removed a number of the original Commandos, the presence of the team was still something nice for the fans. This episode, though nice and nostalgic for fans of the first Avenger, just feels kinda incomplete. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to explain it right now. This is the first time I've seen Carter what I had originally feared for the series, the strain of the pace and scope of being an 8-episode miniseries. The primary culprit in this episode was the setup. Actually getting Peggy into Russia took a good chunk of the show, and as such the main scenes actually in Russia, including the mission and the action sequences, felt rushed and inadequate. Don't get me wrong, how she got there was one of the most interesting parts of the episode, but it was just, and this is the only time I felt like the hour-long format just was not enough, and hopefully they fix a little bit of it in the next episode. As such, we had little development on the mysterious scientists and have more questions than answers revolving around the Black Widow program, as it was used more like an interesting backdrop than an actual focal point of the show. And you can only hope as Dottie's character kind of progresses, we're gonna get more information about it. Another thing we learned in this episode is that Russians apparently learned to shoot where stormtroopers do. Those guys couldn't hit anything they were shooting at, which was mostly Carter. Oh, and most Russians are named Nikolai. The more you know. The bottom line is that we're only 3 episodes away from the end of what has been a surprisingly well-written, wonderful little miniseries, and that really sucks. Don't forget to comment below with your thoughts on this episode. Signing off, this is CJ, and I'll see you next time. Oh, by the way, I guess I give this episode probably a 7. It wasn't great, but it was still good. So yes, comment below. Do you agree or disagree? Signing off, this is CJ, and I'll see you next time.